I'm Anna, the Yarn Randomizer, and I'm back with episode 8. Wanted to do it a little sooner, but I've got to it now. And wanted to welcome folks who are coming back to watch again, and also anybody who's new. I've been only recording since, I think, February and stuff, but I'm slowly but surely building up a variety of videos and stuff to look at. So take a look, thumbs up anything you enjoy, like and subscribe, and let's just, you can find me on Instagram at original.annasender and on Ravelry as the Yarn Randomizer. So let's just get right to it. What am I wearing? I am wearing my Lento, which I'm cheating a little bit. I did block it, but I haven't fully woven in all the threads yet. But I think it turned out pretty well. So you can see I've got a lot, almost like a 3/4 sleeve. I think it turned out pretty well. And it fits really comfortably and stuff, and I'm really happy with it. And it's very hot here. So I'm going to be taking this off right now. But yeah, really happy with how it turned out. It blocked and dried very quickly. This was a really, there we go. This was a really fast knit, it was 2 skeins of yarn from Yarnable from Hypnotic Yarn, along with some drops Kid Silk. So it only took that much sweater. I was able to knit with just 2 skeins. I almost used every bit of it, but it turned out so nice. And it's done on big needles, really comfortable, and I really highly recommend the pattern. If you're wanting something that doesn't have, the ranunculus is great, and I definitely plan to make more of those. But if you want something that doesn't have a lace, you want it just plain up top that's on the big needles in a similar way, the Lento is really great. So really recommend that. So let's see. So I think other than that, that's what I was wearing. Now I'm just wearing my, you can see it, Let's Get Nerdy, which corresponded to some mathematics and software before, but now it applies to my knitting in a big way. Also, for those who don't know, the reason I call myself the Yarn Randomizer is most of my projects are picked at random from my stash. So I have my husband pull random numbers from a little bucket of chips that I have, and then I have to figure out what to do with the yarn, and that will come up. I have a couple of choices later to talk about where I'm figuring out what to do with the random picks that came out of my stash. All right, I have got a lot of finished objects. The first one I've been working on, this was actually Yarn Randomizer Project 3 for the year. So I picked this much earlier in the year and slowly been working my way through it. But this is the Swanky Chic shawl, and I used a yarn set from Les Garçons and La Bien-Amie from 2021 for the holiday season, and I decided to just put it into this pattern. And one of the things to see is that all the little gray areas here are this Surrey alpaca, and then I use there's a main color that goes all the way through it that's, I believe, from La Bien-Amie, and then these little contrasting yarns half of them are from Les Garçons and half from La Bien-Amie. I'm really happy. I'm really surprised actually by the amount of length I got. So I had 8 different colors to put together in here, and it ended up much longer than expected. And you can see I've got a bucket full of ends to deal with. But this will be great this winter as it gets colder. And this would be typically how I would wear it. And so yeah, so I'm really, really happy with that. And I made it so that I'd have these kind of going together, kind of pink and the burgundy together at the ends of it and everything. But just some really awesome colors, very squishy, very soft. It was fun using the Surrey in there. I can't say that a single strand of Surrey, and I imagine mohair is the same, is the most enjoyable thing to knit with, but the result is very nice. And so really happy with that, and also happy to have it off my needles finally. So that one's done. So I think, considering I already have, I'm probably at over 40 shawls at this point. You know, I got plenty of shawls, but still love making them and love wearing them too. So that one is done, and I have the project, all the details in the project. Really recommend the pattern. It's a very easy pattern. And you can see the amounts of yarn I used. I would say generally, most folks may have to scale up a little bit from what I use, because I'm kind of a tight knitter. So even though I scaled up on the needles a little bit, I probably could have gone up another size. But even so, it's plenty squishy and plenty soft. So yeah, but definitely I think worth a try. And definitely no curling problems either. This thing lays flat and stuff. So I will block this maybe sometime soon. I'll have to, so as an aside, I have to confess, do I have it here? I don't know if I have it in reach. I have a container. I have a little basket. Actually, I'm gonna grab it. And this is a basket. It's just a simple basket that came from Amazon. I really like it because it's got this thick, it's very stiff, stands up on its own. I can link the one that I got. And now I have a couple of my hitchhikers in here right now, but they were in there because I was doing something else with them. But typically what I put in here is knits that need ends woven in. And although it looks empty right now, there's actually, I've got a sweater, I've got a full sweater that I knitted, the City Limit sweater, that I have to do ends weaving in on, obviously with this one too. And so this is typically where my ends need to be woven in items sit. And sometimes they sit for a while, because I'm very much enjoy knitting. I think a lot of some knitters enjoy weaving in ends, and once I get into the groove, I'm good with it. But sometimes it's one of those things I definitely procrastinate about. But I didn't on this next one. So that was the Swanky Chic. So I finished that, and because I had been doing them kind of in parallel, kind of a race to the finish, I also finished. This is my third hitchhiker. And I am absolutely love how this turned out. Now, I have not blocked this yet, but actually I did weave in the ends. So I was a good knitter and wove in the ends. And I used pretty much as much yarn as possible. I think it was just down to, there wasn't enough yarn left to do another repeat, basically. So I finished this one. I did this on a size larger needle than I did my first two, and I'm really happy with it. It has a very nice texture, squishy texture to it, better. The other two felt more dense. This feels just right, and I'm really happy with the shawl. It's just a neat colorway. Let's get these in here. Let's bring this around. There we go. There we go. Yeah, and so just it makes me think of a campfire or something cozy, and so it's just a nice little scarf. I got all 42 teeth, and just turned out really nice. And this was I believe a Black Cat Fibers yarn called Eye of Sauron for anybody who's a Lord of the Rings fan. But yeah, absolutely nice. And you see a little bit of pooling here and there, and the pooling was interesting because I'd get these solid gray sections, but the ones with the sections near them would have the yellow and red coming together. So it was never as if I had a solid red section or a solid yellow section. You'd get some gray and some red and yellow mixed together as the pooling here. So I'm glad I used this for this instead of a pair of socks. Would have been great as a pair of socks, but really happy with this hitchhiker. And it's a good lesson for me on basically, oh, you know what, basically on, oh my goodness, I have just lost the thought. But on increasing the needle size and still being able to squeeze out the 42 teeth. It turned out so nice. Now I think that this skein of yarn, if I remember right, may have had more than 100 grams. I think it had like 107. And so on the larger needles, I was able to get the 42 teeth, but it's actually, there's more than 100 grams of yarn in here. So my caution would be, you may not be able to squeeze out with a good, with the right gauge, 42 teeth out of a 100 gram skein, because the pattern originally calls for a yarn that comes in 150 gram skeins. So that would be my only caution. But in my project, I do link my spreadsheet that lets you figure out if you're going to have enough yarn to be able to do all 42. It kind of gives you what percentage complete you are for every row in the project, and you can look at that. And if your yarn usage, if you're using up less of the yarn than the percentage of the yarn than you are as far as being percent complete, you'll be able to do it. But if you start getting ahead in your yarn usage versus percentage yarn usage versus completeness, you won't be able to get all 42 teeth. So probably more information, more detail than you ever wanted to hear. But yeah, so it turned out really nice. All right, next finish object. I do have an end to weave in, but I was kind of leaving it for now. I'll put this in my basket. But I made this little this little star ornament. See that? Yeah. And very fiddly. It was, I'm glad I made it. And I made it's a free pattern, and there are 2 stars in this pattern. One's a type A, this is a type A, and there's a type B also. And it's interesting, she has some really good instructions for doing a cast on for this, where you, basically what you do is you're casting on the outer edge and working in. Now before you start doing that, you also pick up in the same set of stitches that you cast on with, or in this case in these purl bumps, you pick up the stitches to form the other side and do the same, basically the same thing on the other side. And so it was really an interesting little pattern to do, and I intend for it to go on my Christmas tree. But there you have it. And I might do some more eventually. It was actually, in some ways, a good summer knitting because it's so small. I made it in fingering yarn, and it's ended up being about, what is that, a couple inches tall? Yeah. So that was a fun little knit. And I'm not saying the name because I'm paranoid about trying to pronounce it. It's STJA and umlauted A MS, Gemma. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but definitely a nice little free pattern and a great little ornament. This will look great on the tree. So there's that. And that goes into my finishing basket there. All right. And then these I did finish. I wove in the ends. So the next thing is these, and I think are all of these yarn randomizer projects? Yeah, the hitchhiker was my 4th one for the year. That star was the 14th, and this is the 15th one. These were some leftovers of some fingering that I had. And these are the Estonian lace wrist warmers. And this is another little free pattern. And I just thought it looked like, I have to say lacy, delicate things aren't typically my style. This just looked like it'd be kind of interesting to knit. And I do like knitting lace. It's fun to knit lace. And so you get an idea, let me straighten out there, about how that goes. So yeah, so it turned out really nice, and you can see the details. So it's actually a very easy lace pattern. And even though she doesn't have it in the instructions, one of the things that I did was I actually reversed the lace pattern on the two so they went opposite directions. In the pattern, she just has you do the same thing for both. And that was a simple thing to do. I think what I'll do is I'll take a photo of my little chart that I made to do it in the other direction and put that in my pattern page. So if anybody wants to do that, they can. But this only took about, I think it was about 70 yards of yarn, and well, just a fun little knit. What I might do is give these to somebody who has some grandkids who might like to be styling to school wearing something like this. Maybe I'm too old-fashioned to really understand what people would think is cool. Maybe I'm too far gone on that front. All right. So there was those. Now, the big one, I'm going to call this finished because it's off the needles. Has some details to do some weaving in of ends and stuff, but this year, after I went to my knitting retreat, I went to a knitting retreat in Cleveland for the Twisted River Fiber Retreat, or knitting retreat, up in Cleveland, out of the Harps and Thistles yarn shop up there. And their person who taught all the classes there that weekend was Ann Hansen, and she is Knit Spot. She has a whole bunch of beautiful, just absolutely beautiful designs on Ravelry. And she's got this bare naked wool where they have these kind of minimally processed, kind of small scale yarns that are all, it's all non-superwash, of course, minimally processed and everything. But I participated in the Mystery Wool Along. I keep flashing you with this thing. I participated in the Mystery Wool Along this year, and it was a blast. The yarns were absolutely wonderful to knit with, and the pattern is just lovely. Now, this still needs to be blocked, and also, if you don't want to be spoiled, the pattern, everything's fully out, so I don't think you're going to be spoiled. All the yarns have been seen, all the details and stuff. But if you don't want to see it, you might want to kind of skip forward a little bit. But I want to show off. I've gotten it off the needles, and it is ready to have some ends woven in and blocked. And the other thing is, there was a technique that I wish I'd known about early on about this. It's a certain type of bind off, and I will link it in the notes, that ends up producing this really great transition from one yarn to another. And I've got it, I'll show it to you in just a second, but I will link it below. And so without further ado, I will show you this, and I'll show you this kind of way of joining yarns as well. Now all the other ends I still have to weave in, but here it is, and it is just absolutely lovely. There's 5 different yarns in there. And all the details on these yarns are in my Ravelry project page. And now we've gotten all the way down, I like peeking out from under these, down to the end where we have this very large eyelet here in the last one. So I still need to block it. And it was picot edge all the way around this, so you can kind of see the detail of what these are going to look like when they get blocked out. But each of these yarns was just lovely to knit with. You can kind of get a good look at it there. Now I want to show you where, if I'd known about it sooner, I would have used this method to transition for every colorway. And you can use this with yarns that are not superwash. But it was really an amazing revolutionary Russian join, I believe it was called. But again, I'll link it below. But basically what you do is you're able to, you transition from one yarn to the next. Now I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. Let's see. I'll take some closer photographs of this. Let's see if we can do this. It's going to try to focus on me. Ooh, and I'm going the wrong way. basically, I'll take a photograph and insert it here or there, where you can see that it transitions from one yarn to the other. They're just interlocked and kind of felted together with basically what's called a spit splice. And it made it so that I didn't have any ends to weave in at all. And just a really nice technique. But yeah, so this ended up just absolutely lovely. I've got to finish up this provisional cast on. You just kind of weave these stitches together and pull that all together up here at the top. Ends to weave in on the side, but I'll be doing this project. I will definitely be participating in this going forward, because it was just a great event. And this thing I'll show it again after I've blocked it, but I expect it to be pretty amazing once it's blocked. Maybe kind of a rough idea about how I might wear it. Let's see. Yeah, just absolutely lovely, and oh, nice and warm. It's sport weight and stuff. But yeah, I really recommend checking Bare Naked Wools out. And they've got a Rhinebeck sweater knit along that they're starting now. Now I won't be participating in that. I got way too many sweater things kind of on the go at this point for that. But and I'm also I won't be going to Rhinebeck this year. I will be going, actually, we'll talk about that later. I've got a couple retreats I'll be going to this fall. And I'll try to remember to bring that up. But yeah, highly recommend it. Really worth checking out, and lovely lace, lovely pattern, and the yarns are just absolutely lovely to knit with. So set that one more in my basket for ends to weave in. Okay, now, so that was all the finished object. My husband's motorcycle sweater is still in a holding pattern, still kind of waiting. It's waiting for a little more self-discipline on my part, perhaps, and cooler weather, for sure, and stuff. But I have been making progress on my Wednesday sweater. So I'm knitting in parallel with my friend Levon a Wednesday sweater from Petite Knit, and so you can see this here, there. Okay, so I'm basically making my way down to where there'll be a split for the hem. And what I'm targeting is I have a favorite sweatshirt that on this edge here, from the armhole down to the bottom hem, is 15.5 inches. And so there's a 4-inch split hem on here, so I'm gonna knit to 11.5 inches here, roughly. And this is not superwash yarn, so I don't have to worry about it stretching to, kind of lengthening to oblivion. But I'll knit this to about 11.5 inches, and then I'll do the split hem. But because I'm doing this in parallel with Levon, what will happen is I'll knit down to the point at which I do the split, and then set the project aside until she's ready to do the split on her sweater. She's about the same place that I am right now, so she's in good shape. She's very caught up, so we might be doing that pretty soon. But I'm just getting myself down to that point. And this is, I believe it's Cascade Peruvian Colors yarn that they had. It's a bulky. The pattern calls for, I believe it might be a worsted and a mohair, or an Aran and a mohair. Again, that's all in my project pages, which I'll link below. But Levon and I are just doing it with the bulky, and it's knitting. It's, I would say, for more, it's a pretty easy pattern, but you could crank through this pretty quickly, because I'm doing it on, is it on 10s or 10.5? 10.5. Now, for every normal person on the planet, that might be a size 10. Again, I'm a very tight knitter, and so I always have to size up at least one needle size for stuff that I do. Now, that's the Wednesday sweater, and I actually don't have, a huge amount of whips right now. Yeah, the only other one's motorcycle sweater, and these that I'm going to show you are the only real whips. Now, I have blankets that go into hibernation, and they stay there and get worked as things come up, but that's the normal part of the process here. They get attention when they're ready for it. So, I think I showed last time that I'd stuffed this head, so I've made a little progress on the body. Looks like I'm about a third of the way down the body now, and when I get done with that, down to about here, about 1.5 times the head, I'll stuff that with some catnip and knit the two layers together again, and then start making the legs going down. And the legs will just be half the width of the body, again going straight down. Very simple, and again there'll be some straight arms that I pick up out of the sides, and I'll pick up a tail out of the back, and eventually I'll sew a little cat face on here, and I'll sew down these corners as ears and stuff. But this is for my son's cats. They each have a cat, and my 3 sons all live together in the same apartment. And they have 2 of the old cats they grew up with, and they have 1 new cat who is the cat with no name. So yeah, it's so that I know that the cats will enjoy this. Let's see, so that's it for the stuffy. And that's a self-drafted pattern. I just made it up. And I have all the details on it are in my project page. I have a sketch of what it's going to look like, and I have a spreadsheet that shows the instructions. And the only thing you might not know is that the method by which I attach the 2 layers. But I described that in there, and when I go to attach these next 2 layers, I will record a video on how I go about that, so that there's some information on how to attach those 2 layers together, because that may be something that's documented out there, but I haven't seen it, and so I'll record that and put that out there. Let's see, so I have, now that was it, the cat stuffy was Yarn Randomizer Project 11, and now this next one had been sitting waiting because it was another sweater scale project. So this is Yarn Randomizer Project 9 for the year, and this is going to be the novice slipover. And so I started knitting. I basically cast on the back. You knit the back, then you pick up the front, knit down, and then you join it in the round, and it's just a slip over. But you can see this Madeline Tosh work, I think it's called Work Sport, which really is knitting up as a DK. And I got this mohair again this was from Wool Warehouse when they had a sale on Drops Kid Silk. I picked up a bunch of it. And so I love the way these colors are coming together. There's kind of almost a pearliness to it. I'm really happy with it, and it feels great. And so this one's on the needles now, and I'm making progress. I think I'd shown the swatch, my test swatch for it last time. And so this one should not take that long, since it's just a slip over, so just the front and the back, then the bottom edge and the armholes, how the armholes will handle. And so there'll be more to see next time around. Now, yes. Now, I think I had described how Yucca, who designs a lot of great sock patterns, and I was mistaken. I think she does a lot of toe-up patterns, but it's definitely not the majority. She also does top-down sock patterns as well. Well, she had announced that she was doing this Very Berry mystery knit-along to make socks. And so I've started that. And so this is Clue 1, which came out last Friday. This is Friday again, so the new Clue 2 has come out. So this clue has been out there, but again, if you don't want to see this and want to wait till I start talking about something else, you might want to look away right now. Now the neat thing about the pattern is it has multiple choices as you're knitting, and so you can knit, you kind of choose from like what texture. She's got a variety of texture patterns and stuff like that. So I chose to knit the strawberry, and you see the little pearls on the top of the toe there. And then I started continuing with the strawberry pattern in the next section where you've got a couple of stitches that came together at the top. So that's the toe and the beginning of the foot there, and I've got them both done. I knit them, so another confession here, I know a lot of people will knit 2 socks on the same pair of needles on like a long magic loop or that kind of things. I've tried it, and it's more fiddly than I like, and so when I do knit in parallel, it's 2 sets of circulars, so you can see those there. And this is a really nice yarn from Coats & Co. This is a Cincinnati, I think out of Cincinnati, and this yarn has a real nice plumpness to it, and is really ending up very nice. So really would recommend their yarn. I'm really impressed with it so far. And the knit along has been really fun. So I've got them off screen now if you didn't want to see them. And I've got the next step to work on now. And so I'm going to try to keep up with the mystery knit along and get these done with that knit along. And you know, I may enter them as socks for Knitty Natty's, no, not the Shark Week, excuse me. Oh, although it would be nice to be able to do that, I did not knit a sock in a week that goes with Knitty Natty's summer sock week. But in the Crazy Sock Ladies summer sock knit along, I'll submit these for that when they're complete. All right, and so that's it. That's all the finished items and the items on the needles. And then the next thing is we'll go to acquisitions, and then after that I'll talk about my next random picks from my stash. Oh, and I did get up my new stash tour for half of my fingering yarn is up now, if you want to take a look at that. All right, so my first acquisition is from Dye Mad Yarns. This is another Ohio dyer, and I saw this on her Instagram page. I believe it was her color for June, and I was just captivated is probably the right word. So at night here, I live in the country, and so there's not a lot of, we only have one neighbor diagonally back a ways from us, and we are on about 1.5 acres of land, and everything else around us is farm fields and such. And so at night when I take the dog out, I would say I see just about as many fireflies as I did when I was a kid. They're just everywhere out there. And I love fireflies. I know if you're like me, when you were a kid, you've collected fireflies, loved catching them and that kind of stuff, and just always loved them. And so I love seeing them outside. And so the name of this colorway is Firefly. And so you see it's a very dark, kind of a dark navy, and it has these little pops of that kind of fluorescent color that you would see from fireflies. And I expect this. This is a worsted, they're her worsted weight called Jenny Worsted, and I cannot wait to knit this into a hat. I'm really looking forward to it. And it'll probably be my 1898 hat that I like so much. It's just a neat hat pattern. So for those unfamiliar, I have rules about my stash in that I have to use up twice as much yarn to bring yardage into my stash. So for example, this is 191 yards, and it's 80% superwash merino and 20% alpaca. It's very nice. But I have to have used up in a project at least twice this much yardage for this to become available to work with. So those are my rules. That's my game with my stash to help kind of reduce it over time. So I mark these types of skeins in layaway until I can officially pull them into the stash and give them a random number that I'll put in my chit bucket. So it has all my little wood chits that for pulling these. So really lovely absolutely lovely. And so she's got some great colorways. Highly recommend her yarns, and she's got a shop in Columbus and a good web page as well to go purchase from. So that's that one going into layaway. And then I decided to participate in Bare Naked Wool's what they call a barn box. And so that comes out every other month, and they send a yarn. It's a new yarn that they have that they send you, and they send you a skein of it, and then they'll have a one of the things I've been participating in for the wool along is their Zoom meetings, which are a lot of fun. And they'll have a Zoom meeting about this yarn too, where they'll explain the yarn and that kind of thing. And you get a free pattern out of a selected set of patterns to go with it and everything. But so you get one skein in your barn box, and what happened was I got this, so here it is. You can see that. And this is 40% merino, but it's 30% hemp and 30% silk. So when I feel this feels like the perfect yarn for a little summer top, for sure. So I got this one skein of it in the barn box, and it's, and I debated, I thought I could do a little shawl with this or something, but I finally, this really needs to be in a little summer top. And so I did pick up 2 more skeins to go with it. So there. So this is just a lovely color. They call it buckwheat as far as the colorway, and this is the only color it comes in. And I've got enough to make myself. I have a few patterns that I'm looking at, but this goes into layaway. It'll come out sometime in the future, but it goes into layaway for now. And but I've got on my stash page, I link the patterns that I'm interested in potentially making and stuff. So really recommend checking her out. The yarns have the quality is amazing, and they're just lovely to knit with. All right. So I think what we're down to is my yarn randomizer picks. So let me bring those. I've got those set out here. Now, the first one, so I have everything is in my stash, and when I have leftovers, everything's documented. If you go to my stash, it's got 100% of my yarn listed in there, and you'll see remnant scraps, that kind of stuff. So I'm I'm ridiculous. I have my scraps in sometimes little Ziploc bags with the name of the yarn or the label or that kind of stuff. So I know there's unless it was given to me as a mystery yarn, there are no mystery yarns in my stash. I just like having it all documented. So so what happened was yarn pick number 21, the 21st random pick for the year, was, see if you can even read this, it was labeled, we picked number 320, is that 329? Yep. It was yarn 329 in my stash, and that mapped to this kind of interesting looking yarn. This is, was it the Fiber Seed? That's a dyer from near Cincinnati, and I really like her yarn. And this is her sprout worsted weight. And I've done a few things with this, so I thought I'd show those really quick. So the first thing I made with the sprout worsted was this thing called a color stacking cowl. So the nice thing about the Fiber Seed, one of the really neat things is she tells you the dyeing approach that they used for the yarn. So for example, this I believe is considered a half speckled. So half the yarn is solid, half of it is speckled. And you can, when you have that situation, you can do some what's called deliberate pooling or color stacking. And so this I knit, it was Stephanie Pearl McPhee's pattern, and I made it a smaller around. Some people had 3 stacked color things, so it'd be a little larger around. I wanted something to go with the coat that I had to fit nice and close, and this does. And so it's a lovely texture, and it was really a fun project, and the kind of thing that you have to do to kind of keep that stacking together and stuff. The techniques to go about that were really fun. And so it turned out really nice. So this uses that yarn, and it's just a really pretty yarn. So I had enough left over because I used, I think, that yarn with a dark brown from the same place called Wenge, and I made, guess what, an 1898 hat. And so I should really put this on. Now, this is a sentimental hat for me because this is a hat I made for my mom last fall. And so she got to wear it for a while. Okay. And there it is, and you can see how those flaps come down over the ears. And this part here, this band, is 2 layers of garter stitch. You can see it's got a little room up there, and it's just really nice. These are such cozy hats. And now I'm gonna be completely discombobulated here. Okay, but really it's a free pattern, knits up great. I've made probably about 11 of these hats, and I can knit these up in 2 days, no problem. And so yeah, the nice thing about their these half and half skeins, or these half speckled skeins, is you get some amazing pooling with these yarns. And then what I like to do is, once I get to the top, kind of use a solid color. So I used the Wenge on the bottom and back here on the top. And so it just made a great hat. I have one of these 1898 hats in their Houday colorway, which is for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I swear to you that this top part looks like tiger stripes. It's perfect. All right, so getting to the main thing is what to do with these small amounts of yarn. So I've not got a whole lot of it left. So actually, I should have brought this forward already. I have these are my favorite, these tall, narrower mason jars are my favorite drink glasses because I've got lids I can put on them instead if I want to take them somewhere. And I made this cozy from a pattern on Ravelry, and it's all, again, this will all be linked and stuff. My idea is to use the dark brown on the bottom, take it up as far as I can, and then bring in the hawthorn up for the top section and see what it does. This should be just about enough to do that. So that'll be a fun summer project to do. So that's the plan for that. Now, pick number 22 was number, it's 368. This of course gives you an embarrassing idea how much yarn I have in my stash. It's less than 500 and probably closer to 400, but still, ooh, that's a lot of yarn. Okay, so what was really cool was this ended up picking out this yarn right here. And this was a yarn, it was in, I think, 2019. And this yarn is called, the colorway is called Snap. It's Sasquatch Sock from, I believe it is, yes, Yeti Yarns. And this was part of a 2-month club from Stephen B. up in Minneapolis, his store. On his website, he had a 2-month Marvel-related kind of club, and I joined it. And I used the first month to make the Easy shawl, which you've seen, which has a colorway associated with the Captain Marvel movie. And then this Snap, if anybody watches the Marvel movies, is associated with the Endgame, Avengers Endgame. And so this combined with these minis that came with it. So the minis are the colors of the Infinity Stones, and then this is the color of the glove that the Infinity Stones go on, and so that all goes together. Some people, I think, made gloves to mimic. I think there's actually a pattern to mimic the glove from that movie, but I have a different idea. So yeah, I thought about, said, what can I do? I could make scrappy socks, I could do this, that, and the other. But when I realized I had enough, so this is 558 yards with these 5, and there are 231 of this colorway. And as I thought and I looked, I thought, you know, these would be perfectly combined for a dotted rays shawl from Stephen West. If you look, some people do a dotted rays where they have a single stripe of color next to the yarn overs. And so the idea would be to have this be the main color and this fill the sections in between the eyelets that are on there. And so it gets kind of this rainbow effect with this surrounding it in narrow stripes, and then the end, I think the very corner of it would be this in a solid color. And so I think I have more than enough to do a reasonable size dotted rays with these, putting these together. So that will be exciting. Now the one thing is, that is definitely going to be waiting. I have a, well, I have the annual shawl, that's one thing, but I think I have another shawl waiting in the wings on the Spice Market by Melanie Berg that's ahead of this. So this will have to wait a little bit. But those are my latest 2 yarn picks. And other than that, I think that's everything. And so I hope you found something informative here, or fun, or helpful, or inspired you to make something. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy this. And I've got a swatch on the way for demonstrating make one lefts and make one rights, and some variations on those. And I still have a couple other things, some demos of Ravelry I want to record and stuff. Things have just been a little busy over the past few weeks. I started a new part-time job that I'm kind of getting used to, and it's a lot of fun. And but yeah, so I'll get my schedule kind of straightened out and be able to record more frequently and get this stuff out. So yeah, so it's fun showing you everything, and I'll see you next time, and enjoy your knits.